What's up, everybody? A couple minutes out from our show. I feel like I live in front of this camera. I said that yesterday. Um, hey, we're glad to be at our old stomping ground, JR's, yesterday for Auburn Blitz. It was a lot of fun. Had several people come up to us and grab some shirts yesterday, Randy. So that's what we make them for. So people will come get them.
Well, we probably need to get some more, and got some new ideas for some hats going into
You
the fall.
definitely want some hats because that is, man, I could give every one of them away right now if I
And
had them.
I've give everybody a heads up. I've got a new batch of "Welcome to the Plains" T-shirts for Lee Apparel.
Okay.
It's just straight up orange and blue. It's a little location map of where we are on Opelika Road and some attractions around us, and so I've got those to give away.
Good.
Stop by Terry's. She's the lead at our new Auburn office, so we'll probably have some at Sign Essentials too. So if you just stop in and tell Veronica or Terry that you're here to pick up a new T-shirt, we'll get you one. But we'll give some out here on our show too, Brett.
Oh yeah, man.
Then really ready to get. We've got a new digital board going up, but it's like everything else. If it was as easy as just walking out there and putting it up, that'd be fine. But you got to go through all the legal jargon and routes to get electricity run from your building out to the road, which that sounds easy, but there's no part of anything like that that's easy to get done.
No. Oh,
So we're working on that, and when we have that, we're going to have quite a few things going on about Auburn Blitz on that board. We're going to start co-sponsoring the Lee County Player of the Week in that area, so we'll try to get a good picture for that kid or that team in the local area and put that on our digital board there. It's on Opelika Road. That one's an Auburn address. The other locations in Opelika. So there's a couple updates for you.
there you go. We always like updates.
Yep.
So we're about a minute away from getting started. And
What are you going to talk to me about today, Brett?
Well, I mean, I got a few interesting things that we're going to discuss this morning. Some of it not a surprise, and of course, regional baseball going on. So I think we're started now. So let's see what we got. We got 30 seconds.
Heads up, everybody tuning in. If you're just finding us, this is a television show that we produce in Alabama that starts up from 7 to 9 on Saturday mornings, and we just shoot it here through our podcast outlet. So if we seem a little off kilter when we go to breaks, it's because we're down on television.
Yep. All right, here we go.
Got to remember to say that, Brett. Some people don't know they don't know what we're doing, Brett.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome into the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown presented by JR Sports Bar and Grill and Sunshine Heating and Air. And we hope to see a lot of sunshine today in this weekend for the rest of the weekend. And hope you got some great plans out there. And we're glad that you joined us this morning. And we're here with you every Saturday morning. I'll give the disclaimer. Yeah, we're here like we've been for the last 20 years for Saturday Sports Countdown, just doing it a little bit differently now. With the format that we have, which allows us to bring other people in. It's really, really good and got a lot of positive things going on. And we love to hear from you. We love the interaction. Obviously, we can't take phone calls in this method, but we do take our comments through YouTube and Facebook. So really, really appreciate everybody that joins us each and every week. There's a ton to talk about this morning. And college baseball is, you and I both love college baseball, so we're going to talk about that a good bit. And going to be some interesting games set up in some elimination games this morning in early afternoon for some teams that weren't expecting to be in elimination games. So we'll talk about that and a lot more locally. Had graduation last week, and pretty much high school athletics has come to an end, and waiting for all the camps and the things that go on during the summer. And so we'll be covering that as well. There's just a ton going on. It never stops. The thing that somebody came up to me the other day and said is, you don't have any breaks anymore, do you? I'm like, man, I don't know when the last time I had a break was. You don't really in the world of sports, especially with summer. And, when you break summer down, it's really 8 weeks. I know all the school teacher friends out there. My wife, she heard that, would be real pissed at me right now for saying that, because it goes by so fast, and you have all these different things you want to do in the summer. You have them planned. And then when you blink, it's time to go back to school. But yeah, it's really a short amount of time. But these kids, they have maybe a little bit of a break right after school gets out for a week, and then they're back in their sport.
Well, it's not the break that you and I had
No.
growing up, where it was a solid 3 months and you could go and take a summer job and really feel like you could work that summer job. And, the summer jobs I had, I don't know about you, but the ones I had were at Premier Knits in Daviston, Alabama.
I hadn't heard that.
15 years old, my mother had to make sure that I was driven to Daviston, Alabama every morning, and you had to be there by 6 o'clock in the morning. And if you were late, Ricky Shockley was the manager of that location. And anybody that knows Ricky, I love Ricky. Lord, rest in peace to Ricky. He was wonderful, but he was a good old drill sergeant. And me and the family members that had dads that were in ownership of that business thought that we were going to have an easy ride, Brett. Not if Ricky was your manager. You were going to work, and he was going to keep an eye on you. And so that's the way that went down. But from 6 to 2, we could go have a summer job. You can't do that anymore. That's over. If you got a kid that is interested in athletics, there's going to be a morning workout session and a football throwing or 7-on-7 or camp session that's going to go on directly following that. There's going to be camps for basketball. There's going to be camps for football. For baseball. They'll have Brett, 2 weeks that each of them have that they can go and do play dates throughout the summer. Well, it's not the summer that we grew up with. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I am saying that it's impossible to think that we had the standard of play that they expect today back then, because we worked hard, but we just didn't have they didn't allow the amount of time as they allow today to work with these kids. And that makes a massive difference. I mean, it doesn't matter how much talent you've got. If you're getting enough coaching and enough training, it's only going to get better. And so I'm sure you hear that all the time as a board member, how much time constraints, especially multi-sport kids, have today. I mean, to be a 3-sport athlete, the one thing I'm more proud of than anything is I wasn't the best in any sport on any team that I was on, but I was good enough to play on all of them. And so I got, some different coaches, some different leadership attributes from each one of those guys that you were lucky enough to be around, Brett. But it's harder and harder to do that today.
I think we've talked about this before. I don't think we were intending to go down this rabbit hole this morning, but we will. There's positives and negatives to the setup. I mean, I'll be honest about it. And I hear it both ways. I hear, parents and kids are glad they can do a sport year round, and I hear the other side that they wish they had a little bit of time off. And then I also hear the fact that, somebody may be really, really interested and loves 2 sports, and they can't really play 2 sports anymore, much less 3, because they can play it. Don't take it that way. I don't want people saying, well, what do you mean they can't play 2 sports? You got spring and fall. But the sports in the fall never stop in the spring, and the sports in the spring never stop in the fall. And so what I mean by that, and what parents mean by that, and maybe kids, is that there ain't but 24 hours in a day. You and I talk about that all the time. You have to prioritize your time and figure out what is the best use of your time. And again, it is a issue if you love baseball or you love football, and we know a bunch of kids that love both of them, and they may play both, but they have to really concentrate on one. And it's because of whatever it's going to take them to the next level, or whatever that looks like for them. So they may have to put one on the back burner. and definitely 3 sports. Man, you playing 3 sports now. Let's just say you're playing football, baseball, and basketball, man. I don't know where you find the time, to be honest.
No, I don't think there is. And, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole too much, but it is, part of, what my train of thought is this morning. I'm about to go be in a gym with a travel basketball tournament for most of the day today. Brett, have you been to 17 Springs yet in
I haven't
Millbrook?
been there. No,
You
we
must
need to
go.
we
You
got to get
must
down
go.
there and do that.
Hey,
So.
I tell you what would be a good idea if you went over with the HSA in the Wetumpka, Millbrook, Stanhope
Mhm.
area to pick up on some kids, maybe do some interviews. Get a tour of that facility.
Yeah,
By
it'd be good.
And it's not just a facility. I'm speaking of the indoor facility. That's where my nephew Graham and his team's playing bright and early this morning in that new facility over in Millbrook. You need to give everybody a view of that. And then when you're back up in Sand Mountain, because I think there's a lot of people in the state, Brett, that still haven't traveled up to Sand Mountain and seen that sports facility that
Right.
they have up there. So I don't know. That's just thought as we get going this morning that would be great for our on the road with the AHSAA show to show off some of these facilities and show off these communities that are, putting their money where their mouth is. I mean, they're throwing money at youth athletics and they're hoping to get it back in return with tourism. We just happen to be here in the Lake Martin region with that lake behind me right now. We've got a tourism attraction that, yeah, there's a lot of money thrown at it too from an entertainment value standpoint, but you don't have to put any more money in that water and those fish being back there. And so they're boy, they were ripping around last night, Brett. You're talking about night tournaments.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on my little sandy point out here, but
Right.
I had one boat on top of another out there fishing last night in a night tournament, and a lot of young kids, a lot of young high school and college age guys that looked like they were fishing. Is that becoming the norm too? I'm
Yeah, I mean,
guessing.
these kids get out there and fish now, and again, uh, I remember doing it all the time when I was younger with Greg, and then when you get a son that wants to take a 21-foot bass boat out with a 250 motor on it, you cringe. I could use some other words, but you just want them to get back safely, and so yeah, there's more and more younger age kids out there running around at night. So let me use that as a chance to have a PSA for a minute, man. On the water at night, keep your head on a swivel, dude. I'm telling you, it is. I used to not think about it really that much, but the
Yeah,
older
you
I
did.
get,
Yeah.
man, I'm a lot more keen on my surroundings, and there are a lot more near misses out there now. I can tell you because there's more people out there doing it, and so we've gone down that path. But anyway, yes, that there's a lot going on, and the one thing I'd say is, yeah, you ain't got to put money in that lake for the fish. But I wish the fish would get bigger on Lake Martin, like they do on the Tennessee River. Man, they just don't get as big here, but maybe one day, maybe we'll get the bait situation figured out and get those spots back up to the 3, 4, 5 pound range instead of the pound and a quarter, 2 pound range. But anyway, yeah, I think to go to our first break here, timing and time for these kids to be able to do multiple things. And hey, look, and again, another downside, and I hear this from kids all the time. I really do, is that they can't really have a job, like you said just a minute ago. There's not an employer that can employ somebody that's only going to be there a couple days a week, and so they miss out on that opportunity too. I mean, you got to think about it when you're trying to learn. You and I both had summer jobs all the way through school. You learn a lot, man. You learn a lot in those grunt work jobs and what it's like to get up and be somewhere on time and do all that kind of stuff.
Well, I'm thinking of my dad right now because it's kind of funny. If a coach would have told him and the parents that we grew up with, including Roger, Randy, he's not gonna be able to work this summer because he's got
Yeah.
ball. He's got ball. Okay, well, no. That isn't really part of the option, but we've kind of conceded to that. that we understand that if your kid's going to be as active as you want them and as productive as you hope that they're going to be in a sport, then they're going to have to put the work in. But that would have been a very difficult conversation I would have had to have had many, many moons ago. But it's funny to see the way the generations have changed and the thought process around that have changed. But part of that also is these short summers, man. You only got
Yeah.
8 weeks out. I mean, it's difficult, and everybody's going to have at least a week or so of vacation or something tied up into that. There's not much you can get out of it. So I'm off that soapbox, but it's where my head is this morning because I'm thinking of a lot of these kids you're interviewing and the people that we're covering and about to talk about with the high school ranks. And man, they are as busy right now as they were during the school year.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Going to go to our first break, Kyle. I see your comments, so I'll get to that here in just a minute. But yeah, we appreciate everybody. We're up against our first break here for TV. Stay tuned. A lot more to come here on the Saturday Sports Countdown. Yeah, Kyle, I don't know that guy that was the coach at Wadley, but yeah, he obviously and what Kyle said is what do y'all think about Wadley's coach leaving? Had them going back to back with Wilkes. I mean, could still do that because
Oh yeah,
they still got a loaded team over there, and whoever the coach is, and Wadley's going to inherit in 1A, going to walk in and inherit that. It's going to be pretty good. But hey,
in a great football community, Brett.
Oh
I mean,
yeah,
Wadley, our entire life, has put great effort at 1A to putting
right.
a quality product out there. I mean, that community embraces football, and they've had some talented players that were not only talented in 1A, they'd been talented in 6A. So, hey, I do a lot of work over at Beauregard now
Right.
with the new sign company that we have, and so I've got a little bit better judgment on that program and the leadership they have. Brett, they've got one of the nicest principals over at Beauregard High School that you'd ever want to be around. And
Really?
oh my gosh, yes. And they've just got really good leadership, and I like going in there. I like being around that place. You get a sense, in some places you get a sense like this is and most of the time it's leadership. It's not only facilities, but it's leadership. But you get a good hometown feel. Is that good enough way to
Yeah.
explain it to you that's traveling all over the place and meeting all these coaches? I'm impressed when I go in there. So he's not saying you never want to say that when somebody leaves your program they've moved up, but look, if somebody there's some programs in the state of Alabama, if you left Benjamin Russell and went to Brett and I wouldn't be happy about it, but we'd understand. And it's kind of the same with Wadley to Beauregard. I mean, you're stepping up in classification, competition, and it's a heck of a place to go and work, I think, and as much as I've been around it lately, I think I at least have an opinion that they can go somewhere with it.
There are a lot of great schools around here, a lot of good people. That's one of the good things about being able to travel around like I do every week and see these communities. And we appreciate ALDOT and their partnership with us for allowing us to be able to put this show on, and got a couple things in the works right now with some other people that are wanting. And when I say other people, other organizations that want to jump on board, they've noticed this show. This is still a very young show. We didn't start really doing this show until this past fall. So we're just right now coming up on the first year of doing our On the Road show. And so, yeah, we've been able to see and do a lot of things. We're about 5 seconds out here.
Hey, hit on Parker, hit on Cleveland.
Yeah, I will.
When we come back.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown presented by JR Sports Bar and Grill and Sunshine Heating and Air. I can't thank JR's and Sunshine Heating and Air enough for their longtime partnership here on our program, allowing us to bring you Saturday Sports Countdown every Saturday. Justin, I don't know where Mr. Robinson is. It's just he's out there. He's meandering around somewhere. So I'm sure he'll pop in at 8 o'clock, kind of like the blister, you show up after all the work's done and you take all the credit. So anyway, when you don't show up on time, I can say stuff like that, and that's the way it works in this business. But yeah, going back to what we were talking about with our on the road show, we've had a really good, basically coming up on a full year doing this show, and we had to have a partner to buy into this, and there was no better natural partner than the Alabama Department of Transportation, because we're on the road literally every single week. And most people are seeing this now. I talked to Allison yesterday, actually, Randy, by the way. She was bragging on the Orange Beach and Gulf Shore shows that we shot a few weeks ago, and the segment that we did on the bridge that's being built in South Baldwin County. It's going to allow traffic to go, into Orange Beach, Gulf Shores, and out using two different bridges, and all four lanes go in one direction, coming to and from, which is going to be really, really good to help with traffic coming in, because, again, that's where a lot of people go, not just during the summer now, but year round. But, yeah, we have a great time. I'm very fortunate to be able to travel with Faith and Maddie. Maddie's been our intern, but she's done a really good job, and she loves it so much, even though she's not in school right now with us anymore doing an internship. She's like, look, I want to keep doing this show with y'all because I love going and traveling, and through the Auburn University internship department and through Rick Smith and all, really appreciate helping me and you, Randy, kind of get some people that can help us do this, but finding some really talented people as well. And so in that mix, Faith has joined our group, and we started something along with the On the Road, going and interviewing the top prospects in the state, because really nobody's done it. And so we came up with that idea. And so I think we've gotten 6 or 7 of them done now. And this past week, we traveled up to Parker High School, and really with Coach Warren and Vodney Cleveland. That interview will come out next week. Faith will have that pushed out on our Auburn Blitz YouTube and Instagram. So really going and meeting these kids and sitting down with them and talking with them is just, it's an awesome opportunity, and you get to see them in their environment. You get to talk to their coaches. It's a lot of fun.
We'll start with the coach there. Everybody that knows Parker High School knows that they won the state championship last year. Glad to have you in, Luke. So a good segue into this. Luke up there in the Birmingham market, so knows.
He looks mad this morning. You all right, Luke?
No, I'm happy as a clown.
Happy. Hey, normally clowns are sad. They just put on a fake facade, right?
No, clam.
Oh, I thought you said a clown. Well, or clown, whatever.
I don't even like clowns.
I don't know
No
many
offense
people
to any clowns listening.
Well, yeah, I'm about to be stuck in the middle of 2 clowns for the next hour and a half. I'm already telling that. But back to Parker real quick. Talk about Coach Warren, Brett. I don't know him personally, but there has to be a lot of great things about him, because kids are flocking to that program. And
I can see why now.
Good.
After going and spending some time with him, and how nice he was to us, and how humble, and just talking about the experience to bring a state championship to a school that had never won one before. And, you walk in their football facility and you see pride. The thing is that, you walk into all these schools and these facilities, you form an opinion, because I've never been to a lot of them. And when you walk in there, it's just like anything else in this world. You only get one chance to make a first impression. And we walk in, and everything's dolled up. The weight room's in good shape. They're out there renovating the football field and the facility. All the murals are on the wall, and all the accolades for former players are up on graphics. And so yeah, you go and it's clean. You walk in and there's not crap strode everywhere and stuff. So there's some pride there. But then you meet the coach and you see why kids want to play for that guy. And he was very complimentary, not just of his kids, but the programs that they play and other programs around the state. We got to talking about Jackson because we'll be heading down to Jackson to catch up with those 3 guys probably here in the next couple of weeks. And he was talking about Landon Duckworth. And he's like, look, man. And another thing, guys, and y'all know this probably as well as I do, but you find out, and especially like with Kirk Johnson here at Alex City, most of these guys know all these kids all over the state because they're involved with them with all-star camps and 7-on-7 things. And like Kirk coaching, the Alabama-Mississippi All-Star game coming up this year. I mean, he has interaction with a lot of these kids that maybe you wouldn't have done in the past. So the networking's there, and he was just very complimentary of other kids and other programs, not just Parker. But, yeah, they got it going on in Parker. And when you sit down with Vodney Cleveland, you know that that's who you want representing your school, and not just from an athletic standpoint, but from a person standpoint. So, everybody be looking out for that interview next week.
And, Luke, you covering Alabama, I know are all of the top 10 prospects here in the state, are Alabama after all of them? Is there anybody that you can look at in that top 10 that Alabama doesn't want or won't give an offer to? And maybe a more important question is Alabama concentrating more on in-state recruiting this year than they have maybe the last few cycles? Because, when you get a new coach in, he's coming from the West Coast, he's already in on a lot of great talent that probably Alabama's easy to sell to them rather than Washington. So maybe hit on that a bit.
Well, as far as the top 10 this year, just pulling up On3's consensus or industry ranking, the Cedarian Morgan, obviously, and he commits on July 2nd. Then Tank Jones, he probably won't commit for some time. He's down at St. Paul's. E.J. Crowell, he's going to commit, I think, June 26th. Alabama expects to get those three right now. I believe that. Landon Duckworth, no, Alabama's not really pursuing, and I think that that's probably very mutual in the sense that Alabama signed Keelan Russell last year, and especially the way everything is now with NIL, et cetera, it's not super unless Landon Duckworth was just a Alabama diehard at heart. I mean, I can't imagine somebody that's he's the 80th, 60th best player, depending on where you look in the country.
He's 50th on 24/7. So
yeah, I think it'd be tough for him to want to go to Alabama and just realize, okay, not only if Ty Simpson does win the job, he could have another year. Then behind him is Keelan Russell, and also, by the way, Austin Mack, the guy they brought with them from Washington. So not that he's scared of competition or anything. It doesn't make a lot of sense for your brand and to try and get maximum value for yourself. In the past, it could have been different because, hey, you might learn something. You might get to be a part of a team that's completely stacked. And Alabama still got a lot of good players, but NIL has just changed it in a sense because, see, he can go out now and get maximum dollar, whereas at Alabama, they're not going to pay him as much as somebody that may be desperate for a really good quarterback because they've got pretty good quarterbacks on the team right now. But then there's Zion Gibson, already committed to Bama. Jaquez Wilkes, I know they like him a lot at number 6. Hezekiah Harris is at Auburn. He's committed to Auburn. Vodney Cleveland was committed to Alabama at one time. I think there was a mutual parting of the ways. And Marquez Daniel, I haven't really heard Alabama's name associated with him because if Alabama were to get Cedarian Morgan and one of these other wide receivers that they're looking at, maybe in Georgia or some of the other areas, maybe Mississippi, then I think that would pretty much wrap it up for them at wide receiver. And then Keon Chapman, who I love. I think everybody's sort of undervaluing Keon Chapman down at Jackson. But as far as the, re-energizing themselves in the state of Alabama, I don't really think that's what it was. If you go back to last year, Alabama
let me pause you. Let me get the break, and you can keep going on stream. We got to get to our TV break. All right, everybody, stay tuned. More to come right after this. All right, you can keep going.
Let him come back with that thought though,
okay.
Because I want to hear that thought on the television side. So, but I'll stay with
Marquez Daniel. Like, we went and talked to Marquez a few weeks ago. He's down to Florida and Auburn. He's going to make a decision July the 4th. That's what he told us. And then Jaquez is in Auburn this weekend. I'll go through our official visitor list this weekend a little bit later
Justin
on.
says it well. He says these teams have to have a payroll, can only afford so many top players
Right.
of each position unless you have unlimited funds like Oregon, Ohio State. And, Jimmy says this all the time. And I think a lot of people were, under this misconception, like Alabama's got unlimited funds or Auburn's got unlimited funds. They don't. And they've got a lot of positives and but they don't. Oregon happens to have one dude that is like, I want to win a championship before I die. And he's, right now he's on death's door. At least he's in the foyer. So it's a little different. Michigan apparently has a booster who's a billionaire worth a couple of $100 billion, who married a woman who loves Michigan. And she's like, yeah, go get Bryce Underwood, whatever it takes. So that's what he did. He went and got a couple of other people.
Guarantee that it works out. So
no, there is no guarantee it works out. And in fact, I see the logic in not doing it that way, because I know Alabama's strategy is this, that, hey, look, we're going to be competitive in the NIL, but we may not be the most. And we look at it like Alabama's brand.
I think the biggest piece of the puzzle is being able to take the kids that you feel like fit your program, being able to evaluate that, because I think going around, and you know this as well as I do, Luke, some kids are better fit for some programs than others.
Sure.
Sometimes it's unexplainable, but you may look at a kid like Avadny Cleveland and say, he's got connections at Auburn, he's got teammates, and he's the number one defensive tackle in the state. And it's not that he couldn't play at Alabama, he couldn't play at Florida, couldn't play whatever. Maybe he's a better fit at a particular place than another. So, you hear all that, and again, it's not all about the money all the time. And the money's exaggerated, by the way. I think people think these massive offers are being thrown around. I've talked to SEC football coaches in the last 3 weeks, and it ain't what everybody thinks it is. I can just tell you that it's very exaggerated. And then
if it is exaggerated, here's the thing: people like Kirby Smart aren't helping quash that.
He's lying, Luke. I hate to call Kirby Smart a liar on here, but I had somebody the other day say that there are a few coaches, and his name got dropped too, that he is just simply embellishing to kids to be able to pull them in. And then they get there, and that's why you start seeing things like the incident that happened with Miami and that kid, and you started, or Florida, with the lawsuit, because they're told all this stuff, and then they get there, and then, oh, well, we got to change this, or that's not what we said. And that's the loose end of all this not signing a contract thing.
Well, that's what I wasn't referring to that. I was referring to Kirby this week saying, hey, kids are getting $20,000 a month to stay committed to certain schools.
Oh, right.
And again, I don't know. I'd be willing to bet somebody's getting paid something. Do I think it's $20,000 a month? Probably not. Do I think he embellished that? Probably so. And as Justin astutely pointed out the other day on another show, hey, there's got to be USC, right? It feels
let me get us back in for TV. All right, welcome back, everyone, to the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown presented by JR Sports Bar and Grill and Sunshine Heating and Air. We'll get to some of your comments. Luke, I'll let you keep going. But yeah, kind of talking about some comments from some coaches and the way all this NIL stuff is going with players and all. I know you follow Alabama really closely. I'm following Auburn on about an hourly basis now with all of our visitors and stuff, so we can give that input. But go ahead and continue on what you were saying about Kirby Smart.
Well, I'll go with Kirby Smart. What I said earlier was Brett was talking about some of the coaches embellishing some of the dollar figures being tossed around. And I do think that coaches certainly spin whichever narrative they want to make it look like they're doing better. Because if Kirby comes out and says, hey, I know kids are getting $20,000 to commit, people automatically turn attention away from somebody else and feel like Kirby Smart's being the good guy. And I'm not saying he's being the bad guy. I'm just saying it's just coach tactics, which may be smart. But do I think kids are actually getting $20,000 to stay committed? Potentially, but there may be more to it than that. Who knows? It's impossible to keep up with what's actually going on out there. You look at PJ Flaherty from Memphis, the basketball player. When he left Memphis, all the buzz was, hey, he's searching for $4 million. Well, I can tell you right now, immediately Alabama was like, we ain't doing that. I mean, I don't care how good he is. It doesn't matter, because not only would it blow the budget, it would also send a signal to some of your team saying, hey, you're getting, $500,000, and this guy that we have never had on campus before is getting $4 million. I know Auburn pursued him for a minute and felt the same way. And the rumor is he essentially got $2 million to go to Kansas State. So what I think about when all that's done is I don't mind the kid trying to get maximum value. The problem is it does create a lot of animosity with the fans, because, here we are feeling like we're caught in the middle of all this.
It creates animosity within the team too. And we talked about that years ago.
Yeah.
We talked about that years ago.
Well, and Saban brought that up. If you remember, Saban said, how in the world are you going to be able to pay your starting quarterback $1 million and your starting guard $10,000? Well, the numbers are a little screwed up with that, but at the same time, he's got a point, and I think that's, again, I can't speak for Auburn, but I can tell you, I think that's where Alabama's line of thinking with all this financial stuff comes in. Like, hey, we're not going to overpay. I can tell you right now, Keelan Russell had much better offers, money-wise, than Alabama. I know that. And he turned them down, because one of the reasons I think he turned them down is, number one, Alabama convinced him and said, look, we're best for your long-term development. Maybe you do come in and start, but maybe you don't. And we've got the guys and the system to maximize your value. Now, you can go somewhere else and make $500,000 more, $200,000 more, $1 million more. Who knows? I don't know what the numbers were. But you could go somewhere else and do that. But if you go there, and even if you're awesome, but you don't learn anything, you have hurt your future self, because the real money comes in at the NFL level, and you're an NFL guy. And again, you can't promise it'll work out, because, we've seen 5 stars not go to the NFL. At the same time, I think that that's a good way to go. And on top of it, if you're Alabama, what you do is say, look, how many schools out there have bigger brands than us? And the answer is not many. Ohio State's up there. Certainly Georgia's up there right now. Certainly Texas is up there. And then USC has its own amount of money, and the LA lure, and Oregon certainly has the money, and they've been very good too. But it's a handful of schools that can say, hey, look, we're always the prime time. We're always a big deal. ESPN's always talking about us. CBS is always talking about us. So you get what's known as an Alabama, Ohio State, Texas discount. But some kids are like, I don't want a discount. I'm going to go wherever the most money is. And again, that's fine too. But it's sort of like picking a college if you're a student. If the University of Alabama is offering you a full ride, your parents may be like, hey, I'd like for you to go there. But if Harvard's like, look, we'll knock off half your tuition, and you got into Harvard, some kids may go, I want that Harvard degree, and so I'll pay the extra money. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do. Brett, let me tee you up, because I want to go back to the comment that I want to.
Let me get the break. Let me get the break, and then we'll keep it going, guys. All right, stay tuned. More to come here on the Saturday Sports Countdown right after this.
Well, we missed that comeback comment I wanted from Luke, but I wanted
about last year's state thing.
Yeah. Well, yeah. How
come
much?
Back to it. Just come back to it.
Okay.
Justin says college football needs a salary cap. Go ahead and make the kids employees. No one cares about education. I'm on board with that, but then you know what happens? We go back to the under the table stuff.
Yeah, look, guys, it's not fixable. It's not fixable.
It's only fixable one way.
It's not fixable.
I think it's at least manageable one way. If we say, okay.
Well, so if you go pay under the table, Luke, who's going to police that?
Well, that's what I was getting to. I think all you can do is say, because we've seen a bunch of schools. Alabama's probably the last school in the early 2000s that really, now the Alabama did a lot of bad stuff, but then they got caught in essence. But they cooperated fully because they believed the NCAA was acting okay. If you cooperate, sort of like if you talk to the police and the police say it's going to be easier on you if you just cooperate now. Well, then you still get the death penalty. You're like, hey, why did I do that? Well, Alabama, I think they're the last school to fully cooperate. Be like, here's we screwed up. Here you go. What are you going to do? And the next thing you know, they threw them completely under the bus. From that point forward, I think everybody was like, no,
you don't. You're supposed to reward the guy that tells on the rest of them. And when you hammer them just as bad, I 100% agree. So what I say is
we've got to have a governing body, not necessarily the NCAA.
I don't know that anybody can govern this. I really don't.
If it's only football, if we have a body dedicated to only doing it for football, and if we can get everybody to agree, like, look, yes, we have to have some level of proof, but we don't have to have, all these truly proven things that are just stone cold truths, because we're never going to have that. There's always going to be somebody who's going to say
somebody's going to cheat. Somebody's going to cheat because somebody's going to say that the risk is worth it's worth it for. All right, here we go, guys. Welcome back, everyone, to the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown presented by JR Sports Bar and Grill and Sunshine Heating and Air. Randy, I'll let you tee it up again.
Well, I still want Luke's response on, is Alabama making more of an effort in the state with high school kids around here, or is it the same process that you feel like DeBoer brought in? And Nick Saban did closer to the end of his regime, which was maybe we're after 3 to 5. At the most, but we're not after 10 or 12 from the state, and we're really not going to work real hard on those 10 or 12 in the state. Your thoughts?
A few things. Number one, I think it varies year to year. Number two, Saban, even with Saban, it varied year to year. It depends on who's in the state and who do you think fits your scheme. For instance, I go back to last year, and what's funny, people keep saying, Alabama on the in-state, they just got hammered. And I guess that's one way to look at it. Another way to look at it is that they're the number 3 class in the country. So which one would you rather have? Would you rather have one loaded with the state guys? Because I do like that. But how can I complain if we end up with the number 3 class in the country? And you go back to last year, you look at Naheem Alford. And it sure feels like, I'm not here to put the kid down or criticize him for doing this at all, but it sure feels like he went to the school that offered the most. That wasn't ever going to be Alabama anyway. He was committed to Ohio State, and then everybody thought he was going to Auburn, and he signed with Oregon. More power to him. Malik Autry is from Opelika. If he had wanted to go to Alabama, I believe Alabama would have certainly taken him. He's a really good player. But he's from Opelika. He was going to Auburn the whole time. There's Jared Smith. Alabama just never really pursued. For whatever reason, they weren't as enamored with him as some other schools. It happens sometimes. Anquan Fagans, Alabama certainly would have taken him. Eric Winters, Alabama wasn't ever really in pursuit. Zion Grady was committed to Alabama, then decommitted. And I think you're seeing this with Vodney Cleveland a little bit too. Like, if you decommit with this staff, it sure feels like they're like, okay, well, we're not going – that's fine, but we're not going to really worry about it too much anymore. And if you go somewhere else and you're a star, so be it. But it feels like they take commitments more personally. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. It just feels that way. Anthony Rogers was committed to Alabama for a while. He ended up going to Ohio State. I'm pretty sure Ohio State gave him a much bigger offer that Alabama wasn't going to match. Derek Smith from Selma, Alabama. He was committed to Alabama for a minute, ended up signing with Auburn. Certainly Alabama would have taken him, but they also got some other good wide receivers. Ja'Kaleb Falk, his brothers at Auburn, they weren't going to get him. And then so after that, you get into the Carday Smiths, you get into the Jordan Crawfords. Of course, we all know the story with Antonio Coleman, KJ
Anthony Rogers. Y'all had Anthony Rogers committed, and he went to Ohio State.
Well, I thought I just talked about him.
You did.
But so what I'm saying is, I think last year was a little bit different. I mean, there were some of the bigger names. Alabama maybe they felt like they didn't fit their scheme as much because you look at somebody like Jared Smith, he was ranked very highly, but Alabama just never really pursued. He's right up the road. And again, I I would have been fine if they signed him. I'm not trying to put him down at all. I think he's a good player. I'm just saying they didn't pursue him as much. And it wasn't because they were lazy. I think they were going after different targets. And this year, you look at somebody like Sadarian Morgan, he seems to fit exactly what Kalen DeBoer wants. He loves some of those bigger, more muscular receivers. He's going after some other ones that look like him. And I feel like that's sort of, you can see his MO with that. Now, of course, if you have a Ryan Williams, you go after Ryan Williams no matter what year he's in. But then who else is EJ Crowell? I mean, that's maybe the best running back in the state since either Cadillac or TJ Yeldon. So, yeah, they're going to go after him. He's really good. They're going to go after Tank Jones. I mean, he's top 15 in the country probably. So, again, I think that it just depends on what the state looks like that particular year, and does it fit what you want to do? And
here's what I hear, though, Luke. So out of that 10 to 12 that you just reeled off, at least half of them decommitted from y'all. Now,
no, not half, Randy.
You just said half of them. I mean,
go
back to that 12.
Okay. Let's go back.
Go back through them. Repeat at least 5 of the 12.
All right. Naheem Alford, Malik Archery, Jared Smith, Fagans, and Winters. That's the top 5. None of them did. Now, Zion Grady did.
Yeah.
And Anthony Rogers did, and Derek Smith did.
Okay.
Then I'm going to Jacaleb Falk, Carday Smith, Jordan Crawford, and Coleman did. But in fact, I guess if you want to count Coleman twice, you can. He decommitted so many times from different people, it's hard to say. But so that's 3, 4. Yeah.
It's 4 of the 12, and and any of those top 5 y'all would have taken though.
No, that's what I just said. Like Jared Smith,
3.
They never pursued. Naheem Alford, they would again. Naheem Alford, I think Alabama would have loved to have Naheem Alford, but you kind of see where the Naheem Alford recruiting thing ended up, right? I mean, Auburn would have loved him too, but I bet you Auburn wasn't going to love him at the same price Oregon was going to love him. You understand what I'm saying?
I just think that this year is going to be an interesting watch. I understand Alabama losing a few of those guys last year, first year. Nick Saban, the allure of Nick Saban gone probably took a few of those away. But this year is going to be interesting. And if they land Sadarian Morgan and some of those others, Brett, it's game on. Because it was a little easier last year for Auburn to go and get some guys that in previous years under Nick Saban, if Alabama wanted them, we don't get them. That's been the state of the land here for a long, long time. Back to Tuberville, if Alabama wanted them, they got them for the most part. Unfortunately for us, that's the case, unless there's a Bo Nix in the weeds that
I do
has
think,
a father that played there.
I do think it's interesting to watch for a couple of reasons. I think there's a lot of guys that really like Auburn that probably aren't going to commit, and they're probably going to commit to Alabama or somewhere else. They may even commit somewhere out of state, and they're going to watch this season to see what Auburn does. And, again, you can commit whenever. Outside of quarterbacks committing, most guys aren't a hard commit until they sign the paper. A quarterback will normally shut it down because they become a recruiter for that. They want to bring other people in, and they're kind of seen as almost a coach. But like you saw Travis Burgess with Grayson, I mean, he didn't make his trip to Auburn because now he's trying to get people to come to North Carolina and buy into that circus up there with Bill Belichick. And that's fine. That's great. But I do think I'll use Sadarian, and I don't think I'm speaking out of turn. None of us know where he's going to commit on July the 2nd. Wouldn't shock me at all if he commits to Alabama, and wouldn't shock me if he commits to Auburn. But if he commits to Alabama, he could definitely end up signing with Alabama in December. But I think he's got pull and ties, and he loves Auburn. And at this point in time, Auburn's got to win some football games. I'm just saying it from our standpoint. We got to prove we've had 2 really good recruiting classes the last 2 years. But to continue to get people to buy into the coaching staff and the system, you got to put some results on the field. So, Auburn's got a lot more riding on what you're going to do this year, maybe as what Alabama would have riding on it, even though Kalen DeBoer's new. And I know even with a 9-3 record, Luke, there's still a little bit of hot seat because you didn't make the playoffs last year. And you can say, well, that probably he should have made the playoffs and all that. regardless of that, Alabama didn't make the postseason, so the fan base has got a little bit of angst about it. So I think a lot of these guys, yeah, I think they also heard some things from Alabama people that said, don't go in there and get blanked in the top 10 in our state anymore. Go and get several of those top guys. I mean, we've never seen Alabama do that before. And it did have something to do with the transition of a new coach and all that kind of stuff. And Auburn was able to take advantage of some of that stuff. But last year's class in state was really good, and Auburn was able to get a really good haul. But you can absolutely 100% bet Alabama's going to turn the screws up this year on these kids, and they're going to try to get as many of them as they can.
Well, again, I think it's sort of dependent on what the situation is in the state. And again, I would love to sign in-state guys because I get to see them more often. I know a little more about them. I can, have better opinions and all those things.
I'm going to argue, Luke, that outside of Sedarian, that last year's top 5 was stronger than this year's top 5.
No, I totally disagree. I mean, by a long shot.
Why?
Well, because Sedarian
Anthony Jones and Jared
Tank
Smith
Jones is incredible. Tank Jones is ranked higher than either Malik Autry or Jared Smith was, and they were 2 and 3. EJ Crowell is probably again, he's the highest rated running back we've had at least since TJ Yeldon, and I would even go back to say maybe Cadillac Williams. There's no doubt in my mind this year's class is better.
Go look at the rankings.
I'm looking at Tank Jones.
I can look at them. I mean, I'll look at them right now.
Yeah, Tank Jones was ranked 7th at his position, and so was Jared Smith. So,
no, ranked 7th at it. I thought Tank Jones
at his position, edge rusher. Yeah, I'm looking at it on 24/7. So, but my point is I think, top 5s do they? I said outside of Sedarian, I think Sedarian is by far a much higher ranked guy. I mean, you could say Neem Alford too, but the bottom line is, they're very comparable. I think you can argue one way or the other, but Neem Alford I think Auburn and Alabama both would have taken Neem Alford 100%. All right, we're waiting for break. Stay tuned. More to come right after this.
I'm looking at the industry rankings, not just 24/7, like the industry, like the whole average.
Okay,
so Marion Morgan is industry number 14 in the country, number 2 in wide receiver. Anthony Jones, number 19 in the country, number 3 position. And I think it's also sort of, and Jared Smith was number 52 at his position. Number 52 in the country. Right. EJ Crowell is number 32 in the country, number 2 at his position.
Anquan Fagans was number 9 in his position.
But I think it's a better judge to do where you are in the country too, in the sense that, 1 year, we know this, 1 year there'll be a great crop of quarterbacks, and another year there's a terrible crop of quarterbacks, and you're like, I signed the number 1 quarterback. You're like, yeah, but there wasn't a lot of competition that year. You know what I mean?
Right. Like I just look, and in fairness, now it went Auburn's way last year, and Alabama's going to turn up the pressure and probably get a lot more this year. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that when I look down here and I see Anquan Fagans and Jared Smith and Neem Alford and those guys, it's a pretty strong top 5.
I didn't say it wasn't strong. I just said it wasn't as strong as this year.
When I look at Jared Smith, he's almost identically ranked the same as Tank Jones.
But he's not. I'm looking at the industry ranking.
I know, and I'm looking at this ranking. So there's multiple rankings to look at. I kind of go off of 24/7, because we kind of deal with them on a regular basis.
This one's an average of all of them: ESPN, Rivals, 24/7, and On 3. So I would take the cumulative average. Certainly would be. That's the one I like to look at because I feel like that sort of mixes in the good with the bad and the whatever.
But I think what we're saying is that the bottom line is that Alabama's going to turn the screws up. And so, yeah, you're going to look at it. I think that Kalen DeBoer was told, don't come in here and shoot a blind.
I disagree with that, though.
Well,
okay.
I do.
Because
I know it's not a cut on the class, Luke. It's not a cut.
I'm not saying it's a cut on the class. I just disagree that anybody would say you've got to recruit the state more. There's some fans that feel.
Well, I hope y'all don't. I hope y'all don't. I hope y'all keep going.
There's
to
some fans that
California
feel
and
that way.
Texas and all that, and we can keep getting 12.
I mean, I'd be fine with that too. A lot of our guys from Tech. I mean, look at the best players for the most part that we've had on the teams through the Saban years. I mean, a lot of them were from out of state.
I agree with that. I think now though, with the change in the sport, and going out and grabbing and how much you move around, I would take somebody that's closer to their home because they're probably more apt to stay than somebody that's all the way across it. Well, I know you're going to disagree.
I think that's been disproven too. We've seen that be disproven. Shoot, we've seen guys that grew up with orange and blue blood like Bo Nix get out of there. I mean, it just doesn't matter anymore.
But he spent 3.5 years there. It's not like he gave it the try. It wasn't his fault that we had a dipshit for a coach. All right, so that's not a good example.
But let me ask this, Brett. But let me say this: 10 years ago, that wouldn't have happened. I don't care how big a dipshit he was.
Well,
no, because he couldn't have.
He couldn't have.
Yeah,
right.
It's the only difference.
Well, what I'm saying is, once you give them a door to leave, they're like, hey, I love wherever I am, but if somebody's going to offer me more money, or if I'm not going to get to play under this regime.
Let me see if I can ask this a little different when we come back to Luke. And then we can remember this conversation as we head into the recruiting class, Luke. I'm going to ask when we come back. How much time do I have, Brett?
Let me get us back on. All right, welcome back, everyone, to the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown. I don't know when the breaks are. Russ got to help me out back there. We're just kind of rolling. We rolled straight on through this morning, but go ahead, Randy.
Well, let's see if we can spin this one more direction. Out of that top 10 this year, Luke, knowing the ones that you really like, how many would you expect Alabama to get out of that top 10? And if you got less than what number, would you be upset with the haul here in the state of Alabama this year? Because there can't be a point. I mean, I've heard you the last 2 years say that, we've become more of a national brand. And I've agreed with you. I've actually gone on our shows and other shows and said, man, I totally agree with Luke on this. Because when you're finishing 1, 2, or 3 in recruiting and you're sitting here as an Auburn fan trying to throw darts at Luke for making up reasons he's not recruiting the state of Alabama, but hell, he's still finishing 1, 2, or 3 in recruiting. I mean, I wish I'd just have that happen. Let's just make that happen, please. But we both know that Alabama would like some of the key guys here in this state and keep them at home. I mean, that's just basic common sense. Looking at this class, how many would be the number, and if you didn't get those out of the top 10, you'd be upset?
And again, I'm going to say 5 is what I would like, 4 or 5. And you say, wow, that seems so low.
No, that's a big number. That's a big number.
In my opinion, if you end up with Sedarian and Tank and EJ Crowell and Zion Gibson, and again, let me throw a surprise in there because I don't think he's coming to Alabama, but I like him a lot, and I know they like him a lot, and that's Jaquez Wilkes. That would be the 5 I would really like. And my reasoning would be because, see, Alabama is not even recruiting Landon Duckworth, and he doesn't want to come to Alabama because he knows the situation. It's not a great fit this particular year. And that makes total sense to me. Alabama's already done the Vodney Cleveland thing, and it appears that ship has sailed, so I'm cool with that. Marquez Daniels is a wide receiver that Alabama is – I don't know if they're recruiting him at all. I haven't heard their name associated with him at all, but I think he's a good player, but Alabama's recruiting other dudes, and he's probably going to go somewhere else. Same with Keon Chapman, who I told you I love, but I don't think Alabama's pursuing him all that much. So there's a bunch of guys in there, and I'm not saying Alabama would get them all if they went after him. I'm just saying that they're not recruiting him. So when you say if Alabama ends up with 4 of the top 10, you're like, well, they just 40% of the top 10 is not very good. I would argue.
No, I'd say that's great. Brett, wouldn't you? I mean, would you agree that at the end of this recruiting cycle, if Alabama got 4 of the top 10, then we'd be off of this conversation? I would.
Well, I think if you're given 100% in state, both schools, and you would want to split it. I mean, I think that would be a win for both schools because you're not going to get everybody. That's why it led me to believe that the effort really wasn't there for Alabama last year in state. I don't think they went after a bunch of guys, and I've talked to coaches. I don't think they were seen very much. Now it's different. I'm out there every week, man. I see it. I talk to all these coaches, and I've run into multiple Alabama assistant coaches at these schools that they said couldn't find hide in the hair of them last year. Okay.
And I do think last year is an anomaly. I mean,
well, and I was trying to give credit to that, Luke, earlier, instead of saying that, I wasn't dissing on Alabama's class, obviously, but I'm just saying that, Alabama they may have took a year off in state, and it didn't work out real well for them. And I think there's a lot of Alabama fans. I've had big Alabama fans come up to me going, man, that was awful on our part. We should never go over in the top 10.
I said that see, the fans get more upset by that. But then if you look down this, huh?
The fans drive the bus. The boosters
in
drive
a sense,
the bus.
They're on the bus. I don't know if they drive it, but Naheem Alford Alabama wasn't going to meet that number, and neither was Auburn.
Right.
We know that now. Malik Autry was from Opelika, Alabama. Now, Alabama's gotten Auburn people before, but Auburn wasn't going to lose this guy. They just weren't. Jared Smith, Alabama didn't pursue that heavily or at all.
Is there a reason why Jared Smith wasn't pursued heavily by Alabama? Because I don't know why you wouldn't pursue. Now, I'd be saying that if it was Auburn. I'm not trying
let me spin this. Let me spin this in there, Luke.
Everybody fits your scheme.
Here's what I don't like. How does Alabama not lose Ryan Williams, which was a massive get? We all wanted him. I mean, we were dying for him at Auburn. I mean, I've said that he's the best high school player I've had the good fortune of broadcasting. I'm going to stick with it. Why the hell would Alabama be able to close on him and not Naheem Alford, though, Luke? What's the difference?
I think my guess.
Yeah.
I know Ryan Williams, his NIL package is very nice. He's done very well. But I think that you have to look at it. Okay, do I want to do this for a wide receiver that we feel is generational? We've watched him come up. I mean, like probably the best wide receiver in the state since Julio. And do I want to do it for a defensive back that's very, very good, that we think is really good, but he's asking a little bit too much more than we're willing to spend? I mean, it's the same thing with why didn't some more free agent cities go after LeBron James when he was in his prime and a free agent? Because they're like, we can get LeBron James, but then we're going to miss out on – I use this example all the time on Locked On Bama. I say if you have the baddest, most awesome quarterback in the world, and he says, I want $5 million. And you go, okay, I'll pay it here. Well, then you don't have anything left over to protect him with. You can't buy a left tackle. So – and you're saying, well, did Alabama overreach for Ryan Williams? I don't know that they overreached. They may have spent a little more than they normally would.
I don't think they did.
But I also think Alabama did get an Alabama discount with him in the sense that he's a gump. I mean, Ryan Williams just loves Alabama. Now, I know he decommitted and did all that stuff. But you've heard him tell the story. He's like, I was at the Iron Bowl, and, before the Gravedigger play, all the Auburn people were like, yeah, you come on the field and commit right after that. He's like, all right, I'll do it, And then he was like, I didn't want to do it. He's like, I didn't want to do that at all. And I was like, I was hoping something good would happen. And it did. And so he didn't have to do that to like publicly retract it later. You know what I'm saying? And I think that it's just, he just wanted to go to Alabama. That's just what he wanted to do. He grew up doing that. And so some kids are like that. Yeah, they want the money too. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he would have gone to Bama for free. There ain't no way in God's green earth he'd do that. But I think that Ryan Williams, my guess, I don't know this for a fact. I'm guessing here. I'm betting Ryan Williams didn't cost Bama as much as Naheem Alford cost Oregon. I'm betting that.
You agree with that, Brett?
Probably close, because I think Nike was used in being able to entice Naheem Alford a little bit more with some things. So
like it's a longer way away to
back end stuff. You think back end stuff after?
100%.
I 100% believe that.
Yeah. Let me go to break for top of the hour. Stay tuned, everybody. Another hour left of this coming up right after this. All right. So I think Oregon, for whatever reason, wanted to come into the state of Alabama and try to make a splash.
What do y'all think those deals look like, though?
Well, I know that he was promised. I know he was promised a shoe deal.
I mean, he
Like
said that.
after college.
He
After
said that.
college. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
no, he said
No, while he's in school.
while he's in school, like he's
He
going to
could design his own. He could design his own
design a shoe.
Like, again, with the Oregon O and the offer, all that stuff, there was all kind of talk of that stuff. I don't know all the details, but that was definitely part of it.
Here's what's going to be interesting to me. And Oregon's classes have been awesome, and they're really very
Until he
top
jumps in a pool and a guy decommits.
I know.
Days.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. Oregon, see, this is the difference in philosophies. It's like, does slow and steady win the race, or do you want to take the sudden jolt of influx of money, try and get the best you can do, and then see what happens? But I feel like Oregon, again, this is just my theory. Oregon's probably overpaid a little bit, and they probably have to. It's a long way from wherever, because the state of Oregon has no prospects. I need to go look.
No, they can't. Yeah, they can't build a team there. I mean,
so. And then around Oregon, yes, there's California there. Obviously, there's the state of Washington that's not bad. Like, it's not like Alabama, Georgia, Florida, Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi though. And so I think Oregon has to overpay. And the problem with doing that, if you get in a habit of overpaying, well, guess what the next class is going to want you to do? Overpay. Like, you'll never to not get to overpay. So I think the philosophy, again, I can only speak for Alabama, is, okay, we might stretch the boundaries a little bit. I know from Mo Diabate, let's say, he ended up signing with Kentucky. Alabama had a deal in place with him. Then Kentucky comes back and says, we'll give you this. And he's like, I'm going to Kentucky. We said, all right, here's the deal. We'll come a little closer to that and do a few other things. And then will you cut? And he's like, so I'm staying. But then Kentucky called back and said, we're going to give you, I don't know what it is. I mean, the rumor is $1 million, a little over that. And Alabama's like, we're not paying you that. I mean, that's crazy for us. We love you. We want you here, but I can't do that, and it's not that they can't do it. They could, but it would mean sacrifices on the back end. And you got to think about the whole team, and you got to think about the chemistry, and it may work out for Kentucky. It's going to be interesting to see, does it work out for Oregon to do it this way, assuming this is the way they're doing it, which I believe it is. Like, can they have several stars who are making a lot more money than everybody else from the school's NIL collective? Now, it's another thing when okay, like Ron Williams is sort of different, because I think everybody understand, yeah, he makes more money than me. He should. But if you're if you're, let's say, Ty Simpson and Caden Proctor, those two should probably be in line with each other, whatever that number is, because they're both pretty good. But Caden Proctor's also a lineman.
5 seconds, guys. Welcome back, everyone, to the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown, presented by JR Sports Bar and Grill and Sunshine Heating and Air. Hour number 2 here. We appreciate all the comments and the banter back and forth this morning about recruiting. That's what we do here on this show, and we know Alabama's got official visitors in. Auburn's got official visitors in. I know the SEC meetings this past week. There were a lot of interesting things that came out of that. We're talking about the current layout of Alabama's roster and Auburn's roster right now, and comparison between last year's class and this year's class in state. And of course, we're going to shift over to basketball here in just a little bit for everybody. But go ahead, Luke.
But I want to tell you this, because I just looked up while you were talking. And this can really fold into what we're talking about. Oregon, the state of Oregon in 2025, I just picked a random year, 2025, they had 1 4-star, and he signed with Oregon. He was the national number 113 player in the country. After that, it's a 3-star, and he dropped the number 2 player in Oregon was the number 683 player in the country. And Oregon signed nobody else in the top 13, and they signed the number 14 player, who was a kicker and probably one of the top kickers, because he was a 3-star kicker, and it's hard to be a 3-star kicker. So what I'm saying is Oregon knows, okay, we can't live off the state of Oregon regardless,
No.
But number one, so they're not killing it in state either, but I get the same philosophy. Like, I'm sure there are people in Oregon going, well, why don't you sign this guy?
They can go spend their money. Yeah, they can go spend their money at other places and go get a guy, because they have to. Auburn and Alabama can really, if Alabama wanted to, just take the national part out. If Auburn and Alabama for years survived on 4 states: Alabama, Georgia, Florida, and Louisiana. I mean,
they did.
And
they did, but
in Mississippi too, if you want to throw them in there. But
they did. At the same time, if you look down the string of last national championships through the years, I know Alabama, while I'm not discounting the Alabama players on the team at all, but you think about Amari Cooper, you think about Tua Tagovailoa, you think about Jerry Jeudy, you think about Devontae Smith. These guys didn't come from the state. They were from, Jalen Waddle, Texas. I mean, on down the list. Najee Harris, California. You think about LSU. Where was Joe Burrow from? He was from Ohio. Now, they had some freaky wide receivers that were from LSU, but those dudes were anomalies, and they're just crazy good. But then they had some other guys that were from all over the country. Ohio State last year, we know they were built from a lot of places other than Ohio. I mean, shoot, they were built on people that were already at Alabama, in Caleb Downs and
right.
Seth, what's his name? And then who else has won a national? Georgia. I mean, their tight end that everybody loves that's with the Raiders now from California. The national – I would love to always have dudes from the state because I'm like you, Brett. I grew up in that era where I went to the 92 championship game and it felt like everybody on that team, even though they weren't, was from the state of Alabama. It felt like that. I remember the Iron Bowls of the 80s where it's like the in-state guys were always seemed to be the heroes. I'm down with all that. But it's just a different age, so it just doesn't bother me as much if we don't get guys in state, if we get somebody of comparable or better value out of state. That's all I'm saying.
Well, you definitely want to pursue the best player wherever they live. I
Correct.
think there's a good example here of Oregon has to go out of state to go get a team, because if they built a team of in-state, they wouldn't even be in the top 100. Okay. Auburn has to get its share of kids from Alabama because its nucleus and its base is built there. Now, Auburn's got to go get some guys from other places. Auburn wants to sign Zion Ely. He's the number 1 player in the country. And I think it's a 2-horse race between Maryland and Auburn. I mean, I think it feels that way. Now, does he end up staying at Maryland? Probably so, because of the Under Armour money and stuff like that. But you got to go get, top players other than just in the state of Iowa. You can't just make a living here. But the unique thing about colleges and different footprints is Auburn has to get its fair share from in-state, and then go get some out of Georgia and go get some out of Florida, and then go get you a Zion Ely every once in a while, or go to Texas and get you a Braden Smith, offensive lineman, or some of those guys that really help you.
He was from Kansas, wasn't he?
Well, Kansas.
Midwest.
From out west, whatever. Bottom line is you go get those sprinkled in, and then if Auburn can start winning more on a regular basis, you broaden your brand again, and that's a little bit easier to go into these states and convince people to come. But Auburn will always have to get its fair share to build its base off of out of the state of Alabama.
Randy, nobody's heard from you.
Glad y'all were speechless.
Well, I'm sitting here in between the two of you, and I wait for my name to be said because I don't want to step on y'all's toes. But I agree with that. I mean, Alabama is more of a national brand. We understand that. I mean, Alabama is the national brand outside of 2 or 3 other schools, and Auburn can be. But we're way behind. I mean, look, you're trying to sell a product that's got 4 consecutive losing seasons. It's a very difficult job to sell that product. I don't care what business you're in. But our coaching staff's doing a hell of a job doing it. I keep tipping my hat to Hugh Freeze and this staff. I mean, we've made up more ground in recruiting than any particular time in my life that we've kept up with this. Pat Dye, of course, had to have done it in the early part of the 80s to see the talent level that Auburn had in the mid to late 80s. I mean, he had, but this is pre keeping up with it to the point that we do now. So I say all of those positive things with Hugh Freeze and this staff, but it's like Brett said in the first hour, it's a must-win season if you're going to keep that going.
100%. I mean, there's just Luke said it a minute ago, there's certain years that certain kids are better fit and all that. I get all that. And there's certain years that, you know, you got to do more on the field. And this is one of those to get. I think a lot of these guys, I really do. I think Sedarian, I think Tank Jones has been to Auburn multiple times outside of, you know, coming in an official visit. There's a reason he keeps coming there. There's a reason Zion Ely showed up at Auburn and made an official visit. They love it there. But at some point in time, you got to go, okay, I love it here, but I got to see some results. You know, I think Sedarian loves Auburn. I think he also really likes Alabama a lot, and I think he likes Florida. He's at Georgia this weekend. I mean, you gotta win, man. I mean, eventually you gotta put a result on the field. And you know, look, Kalen DeBoer and Luke, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, he's still brand new at Alabama. There's still Alabama fans that ain't bought in over there. And so you got to go out, and there's still some things that he's got to prove. And so, yeah, recruited really well last year. Going to do really good this year. I'm sure it's going to be more of a in-state mix for him. But Alabama doesn't need to go out and lay an egg against Vanderbilt. They don't need to go out and struggle against, you know, whoever. I mean, Alabama fans want to see this program be a playoff contending team again. Without a doubt, without any speculation of where they should or shouldn't be in the playoff.
No, I think that he's certainly under more pressure. I get the sense that he's a little more comfortable right now than he was, say, last year in the whole thing. And there are a lot of people who look at something like Jalen Milroe was the problem. I don't. I like Jalen Milroe. I think he's a really good person. I wish him the best in Seattle. And I think at this time when it's so easy to transfer and he never did, I appreciate all that stuff. But at the same time, I could recognize, I think Kalen DeBoer was, I hate to put it this way because it sounds harsh, but held hostage a little bit by the Milroe situation. Like if you weren't going to change him out while that Oklahoma game was going on, you were never going to change him out. I don't think Vanderbilt was his fault. Yeah, he had a pick six, but it bounced off somebody's helmet. I mean, that's just sometimes those things, weird things happen. But it was the defense that was the problem against Vanderbilt. The Tennessee game, yeah, he missed Ryan Williams a lot of times when he was open, and that was very publicly well documented. But there were still some chances for Alabama to win that game without all that happening. The Oklahoma game, there was no shot. And then when Jalen Milroe tried to make that tackle on an interception, and it just looked like something I would do now at age 52, I think that people were like, that's not good. And he still didn't change him out because I wonder, again, this is just theory, but I wonder if he felt like this is my horse for this year. Next year, we're going to have an open competition. Ty Simpson's going to be in it. You know, I'm hopefully going to get Keelan Russell. I don't even know if he was committed at that time. I don't think he was, maybe. But and then I'll have Austin Mack, and we'll have a true competition, and I'll have my guy. But I'm going with Jalen Milroe, and I'm going to stand behind him this year. And it may cost us, and it did. It cost. I mean, the Michigan game. I mean, shoot, I gave Jalen Milroe a lot of love for playing in the Michigan game. He didn't have to do that, but then he stunk in the Michigan game, and it was sort of like, whew, kind of wish we played somebody else. So I think it's fair to say I'm very appreciative of Jalen Milroe. I'm also glad he's in the NFL, and I wish him the best. But I think this year is going to be more indicative of a Kalen DeBoer team than last year was. And I think that's also very fair when, you know, sort of like Hugh Freeze got some passes on his first year because they still had some Brian Harsin on that squad.
No,
they had
the stink
of Brian Harsin. They got to get some of that Sasquatch soap with the Sydney, what's her name, tears that's melded into it, and get some of that that Brian Harsin
bath water. Have you already placed your order, Luke?
Well, I want to skip right past the soap and go straight to the bath water. I'm like, can you just send me a vial of that?
All right, but we got to get the break. Stay tuned. More to come right after this. People buy anything now. Good God.
I mean, how do you prove that it's in there?
You don't prove that. Somebody could just say, I mean, and if it's water infused in the soap, then, I mean, didn't it evaporate?
Well, it's like somebody else said, I use soap in the water to get stuff off of me. Why don't I want to put somebody else's bath water on me?
Because that's the world we live in.
It's nuts, man.
Yeah, it is nuts for sure. Hey, I've got a opinion on quarterback recruiting. I'm gonna throw at you when we come back. Just kind of get your thoughts, because I mean, with transfer portal and all, your quarterback room can be obliterated from one year to the next. So it's kind of sketchy to skip out on a year recruiting a quarterback. John, I didn't say that. Like, here's my deal. John said, why do you say AU has to get a majority of the recruits in state? I didn't say you had to get a majority. I said they have to get, and maybe if I said majority, I misspoke. They got to get their fair share to build their – it's just in the DNA of who Auburn is. You know, Auburn does want to be a national brand. Auburn's got to win to get to that point. But you want in a talent-rich state like Alabama, for the size it is, I mean, you got to get a fair share of your players in state that have grown up knowing really who you are. And then you go get players, you go get as many top players from other places as you possibly can, no doubt. But now Auburn will always have to do it, just the same reason that Oregon's going to always have to go get a majority of their guys from out of state. Because if they went in state, they wouldn't be a brand at all. They wouldn't have a team. You know, Maryland, I guess Maryland's gotten a little bit better, but Maryland has to go. They can't field a team based off Maryland guys. South Carolina and Clemson have to do the same. The state's too small. You know, you got to go. They're forced to go into Georgia and get a majority of your guys. So it's really geography and makeup of the program and all that kind of stuff. But you have to earn it. Like, look, Alabama couldn't do all that before Nick Saban. I mean, they could. But Alabama had to go get a majority of their guys in state and in Georgia and Mississippi and, you know, the surrounding states. And then Nick Saban made Alabama really to the level of what they are right now.
Amen to that.
So,
unfortunately, Luke.
You know, it's sometimes things just work in your favor. My son Walker is like just now getting into the history of college football and whatever. He said, man, he said, Dad, he said, I never thought about this. For the biggest what if has got to be, what if the Dolphins had signed Drew Brees instead of Dante Culpepper, right? I said, yeah, I mean, I said, you could translate that to the what if Mike Shula had signed Tim Tebow or all this other stuff. But, or what if Mal Moore had said, all right, you said no, I'll go get me somebody else. Mal Moore he's like, I'm just going to sit here on your mailbox till you come over here. You're going to have to, because if I don't come back with you, I might as well fly on down to Cuba. Because I got nothing left in Tuscaloosa. They ain't going to let me back. I got to come back with you or nothing, or Terry or somebody.
It is amazing how much a few things like that can change the whole dynamic.
I got 10 seconds, guys.
Danny Cannell's dad who wouldn't clear Drew Brees, by the way.
Yeah.
As the doctor. Isn't that ironic?
That's what Alanis Morissette said. All right, welcome back, everyone, to the Saturday Sports Countdown presented by JR Sports Bar and Grill and Sunshine Heating and Air. A few segments left on the show today. I appreciate all the comments coming in and all. Luke, I got we're talking about quarterback recruiting, and Auburn's got Landon Duckworth in this weekend, and Auburn really was pursuing really two guys, Travis Burgess and Landon Duckworth. You got Travis Burgess making a commitment to North Carolina last week, and then not taking his official visit. Again, you see that happen with quarterbacks when they finally make the call on that. So Auburn's probably going to put a full court press on Landon Duckworth because he's the only OV quarterback Auburn's got coming in the next several weeks. Doesn't mean they can't go pursue somebody else. But Ole Miss, South Carolina have kind of been the two leaders for him. Again, I think it's a little bit sketchy to say. I've heard some people kick around, well, does Auburn really need to sign a quarterback in a class this year? And you can say no because you got three brand new guys, but you also at the end of the year have all three of those guys leave. And then you're like, well, who's the quarterback? And I know you're going to have to go use the portal, and the portal's available for people to go get. I just am hesitant to not sign at least one quarterback in class, every year. I mean, it doesn't have to be the 5-star guy, but it can be a high 3, low 4-star guy that you feel comfortable in, that you say, okay, he's part of this class and he's part of the DNA of that class. It makes me a little uneasy saying, no, we ain't got to get one at all this year if it doesn't work out.
Well, I think I agree with that philosophy. And like you said, for instance, I know with Alabama this year, I said there, it's sort of a mutual, not really recruiting Landon Duckworth thing, because I think he wants the lion's share of his money. And I think he should want it, because I think he's a really good player. And I think he's the number 60 player in the country, number 1 quarterback in the state. He deserves to get good money. But I think Alabama's like, well, we've got Ty Simpson, Keelan Russell, and Austin Mack, and they're already making pretty good money. And so if we get you, that's 4. And Ty Simpson could come back for another year. So that's a lot of the budget being spent on 4 dudes, and only one of them can play.
Right.
So I understand that. So Alabama is targeting right now a kid named Jet Tamala from Nebraska, who is the 10th best quarterback in the country, plus or minus. Really good player, really good athlete. I like his basketball highlights as much as anything. I love watching those. But he's a good player. It's committed to Iowa State right now. Not a bad program, but and there's some people like, oh, we should aim higher than that. And I go, no, this is fine, because you have to do if you get Keelan Russell, who was the number 1 player in the country last year, you're not going to get a 5-star quarterback to come the year after. It's just not happening. And if you do get it, you can bet your bottom dollar 1, if not both, will be transferring before you know it. So you have to play it smart. Yep. So I think
it's roster management. It's roster management.
It's roster and budget management.
Yep.
I mean, you can't. At one time, Tua would come to Alabama even though Jalen Hurts was here, because that was a little bit different situation. Not a great example, because I think Tua was like, I can outpass him, and he could. But even though there was a solid starter at Alabama, Tua would come here because Saban convinced him, like, hey, open competition, and we got all the receivers you could possibly want. We're going to make you look better, and you'll be drafted higher. And it worked out. But I'm saying now that doesn't fly quite as much, because somebody's going to USC or Ohio State or Oregon or whoever will say, okay, yeah, they got all the receivers. I've got $1.6 million that I'm offering than they are. What does that make you feel like? Guess what they'll do? Go to wherever that is. I get it. So you have to recruit very wisely. You can recruit different 5-star running backs every year, because you're like, hey, I want to platoon you. I don't want to wear you out for the next level. You can recruit different offensive tackles. You can recruit different cornerbacks, because you play a lot of them. Quarterback is just the most interesting position in sports to me, because only one of them can play. And it's the most important position, arguably, in all of sports. I know some people say a pitcher, but the pitcher's only going to do it once every 4 or 5 days. There are games in between there. So it's fascinating to watch. And look, I like Landon Duckworth. He was committed to South Carolina at one time. I know South Carolina's still in it. I know Auburn's pursuing him now. I'm curious as to why Auburn wasn't pursuing him more heavily before. But
I think
they like that other kid who's lesser rated, but not in their minds. And that's all that's important. And again, I swing this back to the in-state recruiting. If Hugh Freeze was nothing like, the state's most important, he would have been recruiting Landon Duckworth harder than that kid that ended up going to North Carolina. But you pick the guys that you want to go get. And Hugh Freeze was like, I want to go get this guy. Well, he didn't go to Auburn, so he goes next down the list. And the next down the list is Landon Duckworth.
Well, let me tee both of y'all up. Next year, you got to go to break.
Yeah, let me get a break, and then you can tee us up. All right. Stay tuned, everybody. More to come here on the Saturday Sports Countdown right after this.
Pull up the recruiting rankings for next year, and how many of those top 10 are quarterbacks?
For national or state?
No, state Alabama. I think it's the best. I think it's the best crop of high school quarterbacks overall. May not be the best quarterback. I mean, I'm not saying there's a Jameis Winston in there, but I'm saying that it's the best totality of quarterbacks that we've seen.
Well, you got Gunnar Rivers is number 1, and he's only the 57th highest rated quarterback, which I mean, that's kind of shocking to me.
I don't understand that, but keep going. Who else? Trent Seaborn?
Trent Seaborn, 7.
Well, I'm looking on the cumulative thing again. They got Trent Seaborn at 10, the number 197 player in the country. And the only thing I can think there, because we all love Trent Seaborn, and we all love Gunnar Rivers. The only thing I can feel on Trent Seaborn is there must be some people that feel like he's got a lower ceiling, but he's been so good for so long.
There's only two in the top 15 in the state quarterbacks.
What's funny though
is Myers not, because he's got an Auburn offer.
He's not.
Don't we still have an offer?
Caleb Spivey's the number 13 player in the state. Then you go down, and the Cameron Pritchett kid that was trying to be enticed to come to the state of Georgia, the tackle for the edge, the edge for Thompson. And then, I mean, you got a couple more edge. You got the Barack Willis kid from Moody, 6. But, I mean, when you're looking at quarterbacks, like Luke said, there's only 2. It's Gunner and Trent.
I thought there was more.
Well, I think
the state's got some really good quarterbacks, 100%, but they're not ranked in the top 15, which is crazy.
Well, right now.
Yeah, and it could definitely change. I mean, especially I think somebody like Gunnar Rivers could definitely change. I mean, he's going to get extra points just because of who he is.
Yeah, but but in state right now, he is the number 1 player in the state for 27, which is pretty dang good, obviously. So,
but next year he is the number 1 player in the state, and he's the 57th best player in the state according to this cumulative thing, which tells me is while I like next year's group, I mean they have a good group. It's not quite as top 8. There's no Cedarian Morgan, no Tank Jones, no EJ Crowell. You know what I mean?
Right.
Well, but here's also Cedarian Morgan wasn't rated where he is now at the same time we're talking about these kids. Nowhere near it.
He sort of burst on the scene about this time. People were starting to go, who is that freakazoid out there catching everything that's, catching the peanuts coming from the stands?
But he didn't get that many opportunities as a sophomore. I don't think he had but 400 yards receiving as a sophomore. Yeah. I mean, he didn't get the ball.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, 2 years in advance. Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry.
So I mean, you're really going off of the guys that we're trying to talk about now, sophomore year.
Right. The rankings are going to change. I mean, you got
one thing about Gunner, you may not have to have the top NIL deal. I don't know. The only person who's got more kids than me in the state of Alabama is Phillip Rivers. I promise you that man. Now, he's got plenty of money, but 13, 14, 15, 17, 22 kids will get at you now.
When he was calling out the snap count, Red 38, he didn't mean 38 kids, did he? All right, here we go. Welcome back, everyone, to the Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown presented by JR Sports Bar and Grill and Sunshine Heating and Air. All right, I want to shift around real quick. Got a lot to cover here in the last 30 minutes. We haven't got to hardly any of it. Basketball, both Auburn and Alabama got big news this week. Todd Pettiford comes back. Randy, I'll start with you first there. Todd Pettiford comes back to Auburn, which was probably the biggest get for Auburn and Bruce Pearl in a long time, especially with the makeup of this team. Nobody really being back from last year outside of him, and then being in the position of point guard and being as highly touted as he is, man, that was a huge get, him coming back.
It definitely was. I mean, he'll be the face of the program. He'll have every opportunity in the world to put massive numbers up, whereas, he only averaged 11 points per game, but, it was limited minutes at times. Never really was a starter for this group with Denver Jones and the others that Auburn was throwing out there. What we've talked about, and I'd like to get Luke's take on this, it's just so tough to be a point guard and get drafted in the NBA. Because year in and year out, I mean, you may have 5 or 6 programs, NBA teams that are looking for a point guard that cycle. And, I mean, it doesn't mean that you can't get to that level. But right now, Todd's not. And Auburn's had 2 point guards in the last 10 years I thought were pros, and it hadn't worked out yet. And Jared Harper and Sharif Cooper, I thought both of those guys had a chance to be NBA starters and NBA players, but it hasn't worked out. So, I mean, it's just very difficult. So I'm hopeful that Todd comes back, makes a splash, and ends up being a top 10 pick in the NBA. But, Brett, I wouldn't even be sure that that's the case. I mean, I think it's so difficult to get to that level that it may just be signs pointing to not only this year, but more years. And that's a really good thing because I like the way he carries himself, love his game, and I think his New Jersey attitude fits in real well with what Bruce Pearl-Selling down here at Auburn. Luke, your thoughts though on point guards going to the NBA?
Well, first of all, yeah, Harper and Cooper, very good players. They're just not big enough. And you could say, well, what about Trae Young? I mean, he's not that big. Yeah, but neither Harper nor Cooper can shoot like Trae Young. Trae Young is out of bounds with his shooting. I mean, he's just crazy good. And the NBA, you need some size still. I mean, because the court is staying the same size and everybody else is getting bigger. You know what I mean? But yeah, I thought Tahad and LeBaron would have shots to go pro. A week ago, I thought it was more likely that both of them would go pro than either one of them come back. And unbelievably, both of them come back. And now again, this is I don't know, this isn't validated or anything, but there were some rumors that for whatever reason, LeBaron's interviews didn't go well. Now, that doesn't mean that he was a jerk. That doesn't mean, it just means maybe he didn't interview well from a maturity standpoint. Like maybe, I don't know. I don't even know the details of it because LeBaron has been nothing but a good kid at Alabama. So I don't think it's something like an attitude problem. But it's wild how this happened with the LeBaron situation. See, I went to bed, you know me. I mean, I went to bed and thinking, okay, LeBaron's going pro and here we go. I mean, he had said publicly the door is closed. He said that. And then at about 10:15, 10:30, Yay Alabama posted LeBaron Froline coming back. Everybody's like, they thought it was an April Fool's joke. And so I woke up to a lot of text about his coming back. And my understanding is he got some feedback from the NBA and he got some of it kind of late and he started thinking about it. And his agent reached out to Alabama and said, look, let's talk about an NIL. What kind of NIL could you have for him if he came back? And they threw something together that was very nice. Again, I don't think it's like over the top, but I think it's a very nice, very super competitive NIL package. And he's going to come back. And the first thing I did was run to CBS because CBS does a good job of covering college basketball year. They might do the best job, even over ESPN and everybody else. And Gary Parrish, who's a noted college basketball aficionado, I don't always agree with him, but he's good at it. And he puts out a top 25 and one like at least once a week. And he was doing it more than that when people were deciding to come back or stay in the draft or whatever. And so when Tahad announced he's coming back, I think Auburn moved up about 2 or 3 slots in his top 25, which is a big deal. LeBaron comes back. Alabama was like at number 24 in his top 25. He bumped him up to number 14. He said, that's how much I believe in him. So now you've got Alabama and Auburn both in the top 20, top 18, I think, for him. And it's basically because these two guards decided to come back. If they don't come back, Alabama and Auburn are on the teetering are they even in the top 25? Again, for Todd, I would say, and for LeBaron, I think both of them are worth 3 to 4 wins next year. And the difference in 3 to 4 wins, I truly believe that. And when you're talking about a schedule, the way Alabama and Auburn are going to schedule next year, and you talk about the SEC, that's huge. So what that tells me is I think Alabama and Auburn will once again be somewhere seated between 3 and 5. And I know wins aren't necessarily how you judge basketball teams anymore. It's how far you go in the tournament. But I think they'll both be threats to go pretty deep in the tournament again. I don't know that either one of them has a national championship roster, but we never have. That's what I had to tell people who were disappointed Alabama went to the Elite Eight this year. I was like, 3 years ago, you were sitting there praying, can we just get in the dead gum tournament? I'm not going to be upset if we keep going to the Elite Eight. Eventually, something good will happen. And so I think having these two guys back is monstrous. On top of the fact that the SEC is disgusting next year. I mean, a lot of Owe came back to Kentucky. Alex Condon's going back to Florida. Florida got that kid Xavier Lee from Princeton, and they've got
you got Boogie
some
playing.
other guard that's unbelievable. I can't remember his name right now. They just these teams are just stacked. Tennessee got Nate Ament, who is one of the best prospects in the country. Texas is going to be better because they have to. I mean, it's just
it goes hand in hand. It goes hand in hand with the records of our team since 2021. Auburn in conference is 53-19. They're number 1. Tennessee and Alabama are both tied at 2, 51-21. So there's your top 3 teams, and there's a couple of games that separate them since 2021. Then you got Kentucky at 49-23, and then there's a precipitous drop off after that with Texas A&M being at 44-28. Florida's at 5, or actually 6, 43-29. I won't go on down the list, but Auburn, Alabama, and Tennessee have been the 3 top teams in this league since basically 2020. And I don't see it changing. I mean, I can see Kentucky challenging. They're right there on the cusp. They're a few games behind us, but I mean, Auburn and Alabama have jumped Tennessee and Kentucky on the last 4 years, maybe even 5 if you want to go back further. So, all right, let's get to break. We'll come back. We'll continue that discussion as well. Stay tuned. More to come right after this. But that's your proof in the pudding right there.
John Dent says, as part of a basketball player that's over 7'5", yeah, he's actually 7'9". I got to find out his name.
That's the IMG kid.
You talk about that big tall guy?
Yeah.
Is he 7'9"?
I'm pretty sure. Yep, 7'9" basketball player is Oliver Rue or Rio. It's Rious.
That's the guy with Trump. He walked in, stood by Trump in the Oval Office. All he could say was, "Man, you're a beautiful looking guy."
You're big, you're beautiful. I mean, what are you supposed to do with Florida next year when they have Alex Condon? They also brought back that other big dude that's like, a real enforcer in lane. Chinaloo. And then you bring back this guy who's 7'9". What are you supposed to?
I mean, I don't know how you're going to get anybody on the floor.
How comical is it going to be when you have a pick and roll switch and you got Aiden Holloway trying to keep 7'9" what's his nuts out of the damn lane? That ain't gonna happen. He's gonna reach over the free throw line and just go boop. It's gonna be like playing on that Nerf goal on your back of your door.
College basketball has gone big, though. I mean, if you don't have 2 leaning in on 7-footers that's got some strength and some, you're not going to beat the best teams. You go back to that UConn and Purdue year. I mean,
that's what I said. The court ain't shrinking, man. The court's staying the same size. I mean, the court ain't expanding, and the players are just getting bigger. So pretty soon, we ain't going to have enough room to get all of them on the court. You get you a couple of 7-9ers on there.
Go down to 3-on-3 eventually.
7'9", man. Can you?
Yes. 7'9" and not look like a stumbling dork. You
got
know,
4 knees.
Yeah, I mean, most of the time a 7'9" guy is unathletic, and you go, yeah, stick that dang Ichabod Crane looking thing out there. We'll be all right. No, this guy's big, man.
I mean, he's got to have toes on his heels to keep balance. That's the only thing I can figure.
Region baseball, Brett.
Yeah, I'm about to go there. I know Luke's excited about that.
All right, I'll see y'all later. I'm pressure watching the driveway out here, and I said it came around 2:45 for the Alabama-Miami game. I said, let me run in there and go see what this thing looks like. It was 3-0 Miami. I was out there back there pressure washing before you knew it. I was pressure washing everything.
All right, welcome back, everyone, to Sports Blitz Saturday Sports Countdown presented by JR Sports Bar and Grill and Sunshine Heating and Air. A couple segments left in the show today. We'll shift over and talk about Luke's favorite sport, college baseball. And we'll start with Alabama, considering that in the Southern Miss regional, Southern Miss is the 1 seed, and they lost. So now it sets up Alabama and Southern Miss at 2:00 in a losers bracket game, elimination game between the top 2 seeds. It's just crazy.
Well, baseball works that way, and when you throw your best arms out there on a Friday night, the best arms of any of these teams that make the tourney, if they're really sharp and throwing it well, Brett, a lot of times can beat the best teams, and that's the scary
100%.
part of baseball. It is, man. You just don't know, and I was glad to see Auburn get over the hump last night, get a big win, move on into a little better situation. If you can get that opening night win,
Well, you got
everything can kind of Yeah, everything kind of play its way out a little better, but that's a big matchup. This is a Southern Miss program that they were a lot like Louisville. If you remember Louisville baseball about 5 years ago, every year you may not talk about Louisville, but they were in the mix to make the College World Series. Southern Miss is that program right now. They've been a top 20 program for a decade, haven't they? And so that's a big game for Alabama. It's been a good year for Alabama, 40-plus wins going into the tournament. You'd hate if you're an Alabama fan, Luke doesn't care, but if you're an Alabama baseball fan, you'd hate to go out in a couple of games, but it didn't make it any easier to have to play Southern Miss in a loser.
Well, again,
loser
I said this. I said that on Tuesday night show that, look, we all agree that there's an SEC bias sometimes, but it's also earned. It's not necessarily a bias if it's earned. You know, when the SEC people, when the SEC teams,
I said that this week, Luke.
get the benefit of the doubt, you know, everybody goes, well, they just bias towards them. I'm like, yeah, because
no, it's SEC dominance. It's not SEC
kick
bias.
everybody's ass.
It's SEC dominance.
Yeah. But Alabama was the victim of, like, okay, we can't give the SEC everything because they were the number 17 seed and it only goes up 16. And Southern Miss got the regional, even though Alabama had a better record. Alabama beat Southern Miss head to head, and Alabama's RPI is a lot better. So they put Alabama as the 2 seed there, but then Alabama did themselves no favors by losing to Miami, and Southern Miss didn't do themselves favors either. The other thing that's interesting, I didn't realize this till right now because I just started looking up. The SEC did not have a good day yesterday.
Well, Ole Miss lost to Murray State, and Murray State's first win they've had in region play since 1979. So that wasn't a good day for Ole Miss. And Vanderbilt, man, like they're the number 1 overall seed in the tournament, and they were down 3-1 late in that game to Wright State, and come back and win that game 4-3. But that again, it's baseball, and you run one guy out there that's having a good night, and he can shut you down. And if your team can manage enough hits, you can all of a sudden put a team that's the number 1 team in the tournament into the losers bracket. And now they're fighting for their life to get out. So yesterday when Auburn opened up early, Cam Tilly struggled again. This is a couple of outings in a row he struggled. So got to get that figured out moving forward. But Auburn – was able to right the ship, and Carson Myers was able to come in and really, I think he threw 102 pitches yesterday. Didn't want him to have to come in and do that, but sometimes you just have to do whatever you got to do in tournament baseball. And then Auburn, is able to put enough hits together and get the bats going to beat a pretty gamey Central Connecticut State team, which, by the way, I'm just going to be straight up honest, have never heard of, didn't know they even had a program until they got into the regional. But that's just baseball. You can bring a Central Connecticut State down here, and if you're not hitting the ball well and they got a good pitcher, they can put you in the loser's bracket.
Why do they have – why is it Central Connecticut State? Couldn't they – is there another Central Connecticut and there's also a Connecticut State? And they're like, well, we got to differentiate.
Connecticut was big enough to even have directional.
I mean, I didn't know Connecticut was big enough to have a central. I mean, they don't even have a middle.
I just think they are central, right? Everything in Connecticut is central.
I mean, Central Connecticut State is – I think people lose sight of simple is better. Just, call it Connecticut State or Con State or Central Con or something, but not Central Con, I guess. You can go over here and just eliminating bugs everywhere.
Have some termites. But hey, again, like you were saying, SEC didn't have a good day. Florida lost. Now they're in that Coastal Carolina regional, but they lost to East Carolina. Yeah. In East Carolina, 34-25 this year, not as good as they have been. They've been really good the last several years. So Florida got there, and once again,
they host a lot.
Florida's been playing really good baseball lately. The 38-20, they started off really slow at the beginning of the year, but they're playing their best baseball, so they got put in the losers bracket. So several SEC teams, Ole Miss, Florida, going to be fighting for their lives today. Alabama will be fighting for their lives today.
He said, John Dent says, is Troy still in the tournament? I thought they got left out of the tournament.
Yeah, I don't think they're in it.
I think they got left, and that's, they sort of got hosed too. Troy was ranked like 19th.
Troy had a
several
really
weeks.
good season. Yeah, had a really good season.
But they lost in their conference tournament.
So
They
Brett,
did.
give Auburn's path.
Auburn's path.
Yeah, the rest of the regional, if they were to pick up the win, go to 2-0, how does this play out?
Yeah, if they win today against Stetson, they'll move into the winners bracket. But they'll move into the situation where somebody's got to beat them twice. Somebody's got to come back at that point. Either NC State, Central Connecticut State, or Stetson would have to come back and win 2 games. Which that's why it's so crucial to get that first win to put you in a position to get the second win. If you get in that losers bracket after day 1, man, you are fighting a tremendous uphill battle. Doesn't mean you can't get back, but you better
be deep arms, man.
I was gonna say you better have a boatload of pitching. And Auburn will match up with the Coastal Carolina regional. That's why we really were paying attention to Florida and Coastal Carolina and all yesterday. They'll match up with that regional. And Auburn, being a 4 seed in the tournament, will be the host of the Super Regional next weekend if Auburn can get out of their own regional. So that's kind of how it plays out there for Auburn. But Auburn will have Sam Dutton going today. That's their ace. And again, you kind of roll the dice a little bit and try to see if you can get through. And Butch Thompson, it worked out. Now, Cam Tilly didn't do it for him. Carson Myers did out of the bullpen. So I don't know how much you're going to be able to use him. Now, he's the steady Eddie guy out of the pen. So somebody else is going to have to really step up now. And he threw over 100 pitches. You won't see him today in that game at all. So if Sam Dutton runs into trouble, you'll have to go to somebody else. So, all right, let's go to our final break here on the show. Stay tuned. One final segment right after this.
It's going to be a pretty day.
It is.
Clearing up. Yeah.
Pretty day.
I'm going to be in the basketball. A great day to be in a basketball gym.
And an auditorium for.
Where, Randy?
I'm in Montgomery today.
Is Austin there too?
Oh, yeah. Oh, gosh, yes. Austin and I live together on weekends in basketball gyms.
But your son's a lot younger, right?
Yeah, but he's with the same travel program.
Okay.
So he's 5th grade. So we end up in the same tournaments a lot. Now Austin may be – this one's all over Montgomery. My texts are going off right now because my nephew's playing in Millbrook right now. So I asked Brett, have you been to that facility, Luke?
No, but Austin said it's downtown.
Oh, man, it's nice. Gosh, it's nice.
He said they had to have spent $200 million on it. And I said, there's no way Millbrook spent $200 million.
Well, I do think that they spent between 150 and 200 on the entire facility. Not just the indoor, but all of the multi-purpose fields, baseball, softball. Isn't that right, Brett? That number is real. Yeah, it is nice.
Millbrook must have gotten a raise or something because that's a lot of money for Millbrook to come up with. I like Millbrook, but that's a lot of money for anybody to come up with.
Derek said, has Auburn ever won their own regional? Yeah, they did. Derek, I know for a fact they won the one a few years ago when UCLA and Florida State was there. Moved on to
I heard that same thing, Derek. Like somebody said that the other day. I didn't know if it was true or not, but so I didn't want to repeat it. Somebody said Auburn has never won a regional they're hosting, and I thought that was weird.
Now they won the one. They won the one that year because I can't remember who all was in it. I know Florida State and UCLA was in it, but
And you're sure Auburn was hosting it?
Yeah, because I was there. Well, they may have been the 2 seed in there, but they were hosting it.
John,
you can actually host a regional, by the way, and not be the number 1 seed. That's happened before.
Maybe that's what it was. Has Auburn ever won as number 1 seed? I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know that they were the number 1 seed in that.
John Dent says the catfish house in Millbrook is worth the visit. That's $200 million is a lot of catfish, though. That's a lot of whiskers. That's a lot of using the pliers to skin them things. I can tell you that.
The catfish house makes me skeptical anyway. That could be a lot of stuff.
Catfish are so dumb, too. I caught one in the eye one time.
Well,
He just swam by it.
Right swam by and hooked himself.
And I pulled him in. He's like, yo, ease up now. You're pulling me by the eye.
Soccer
Okay.
done, Luke.
Huh?
Soccer done.
God knows. Sweet Jesus, yes.
Just
Finally.
so it start back up next week.
No, but I'm not having to coach anymore because she's going to academy.
Good.
And,
Here we go.
Good for you.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Saturday Sports Countdown presented by JR Sports Bar and Grill, Sunshine Heating and Air. Just a few minutes left here on the program. We appreciate all the comments and everybody that joins us each and every Saturday. Just real quick, wrapping up, thoughts on the 8-game versus 9-game SEC schedule, guys. Just what do you think about that? And I know it's a meeting.
It's simple to me. If you go to the 5-11 format for determining, who gets in, you go to 9 games. If you do
4-4,
4-4, 2-2-1 or whatever,
yeah,
you stay at 8. I mean, that's what the coaches have been saying. The coaches want to do 5-11. And
the Big Ten wants to do the 4-4. The SEC wants to do the 5-11.
Well, in the end, I mean, I talked about this with Andy on Tuesday night, and I was like, why do we keep – I'm like, again, I'm not trying to bring up an old stuff about SMU and Indiana getting in over Bama, Ole Miss, and South Kakalaki. But I think what that finally proved is, and I think SMU can be up there with other teams because they got the money. Indiana doesn't, and Boise State doesn't. I mean, we've seen – Boise State had one of the best years they can possibly have, and the first time they played a real good team in the playoffs, they got slapped around. And I mean, it's like, let's quit pretending that this is all on the same footing. It's not. It's just not. And Andy's argument was, well, these guys kind of make college football. I'm like, oh, they do? Those Tuesday night games on the Mountain West, that's what makes college football to you. It doesn't to me. I'd much rather see Georgia LSU in Baton Rouge on Saturday night than Boise State playing Wyoming on a Wednesday afternoon.
And I think what you see the discrepancy with those teams really is at the line of scrimmage. I mean, you might have a good quarterback, may have a good receiver, may have a good running back like Ashton Jeanty, for Boise State, but when they go and match up against one of these Power 4 teams that's in a playoff, they can't match up on the lines of scrimmage. They can't move the football. And you saw that happen. And so, yeah, it's not apples to apples. And look, you're right. I mean, you can argue about all the SMU stuff you want to. SMU possibly could get there. But what we've seen in this playoff scenario is when you let those smaller guys in, it ain't going to play out. They're going to get their brains beat in more times than not.
Well, and how stupid. I mean, it seems so like elementary now. You look back and you go, why on earth did we think giving just the 4 champions the buys is smart? I mean, because obviously, see now, because Clemson won, Arizona State and Boise State got the buys, whereas Ohio State, who we know would be favored by double digits over either one of those teams, is the 5 seed, and Oregon gets hosed because Oregon has to play them again. That's the dumbest. It's so dumb now, I can't believe we let it happen.
It's got a lot of flaws in it, and it's still got flaws that they got to figure out. I still think, Randy, you should be able to, if a reward for being a higher seed, you get a chance to play a home playoff game. Isn't that one of the biggest draws to the playoffs? One of the things I thought was the coolest, when you get a bye and then you never get a chance to play it on.
Well, the things that I appreciate with Sankey right now is just he feels like he's taking the gloves off. To me, I mean, let's get it straightened out. I mean, I'm here to defend the SEC, but if y'all can't get us a leader and get us some rules in place that make sense, it's like Luke brings up. Can't believe it happened. Well, I mean, we can't believe a lot of things that have come down the line with the NCAA could happen. And until they get a true leader there and spend the money like the NFL has to get that true leader in place. I mean, who's the leader of the NCAA? Either y'all know.
Let me get us out. Let me get us out on TV right here, guys. We'll keep this going. All right, that's going to wrap it up. wrap it up for us here on the Saturday Sports Countdown TV. We'll be back with you next week, same time, same place. We've enjoyed it. We hope you have. See you next time. All right,
But just to close, I mean, who's the leader of the NCAA?
I mean, that guy who said he wants to increase the number of teams in the NCAA tournament already. I've been telling y'all it ain't ever going to stop. We just got to get them all in there. I mean,
76? Did I see
76?
76 teams in the NCAA tournament? They're looking
and not only that,
76.
I heard some other guys saying, and I don't want it to be power programs that were vying for a position. I want it to be more little guys. I'm like, God Almighty, how many more of these terrible games do y'all want me to watch?
Well, at this point, just let everybody in. I mean, there's if you're gonna get to 76 and all, but Luke, you and I, we all talked about this 5 years ago. Look, we talked about the direction of the NCAA tournament because it's more games, it's more money. We talked about playoffs. We went from 4, now we're up to 12, and it's inevitable it's going to go to 16. Hell, we've predicted all this. I don't know why it takes them so long to get to it. Why don't you just go ahead and do it?
Well, Justin brought up a good point, and this is true, because right now I don't think CBS and True TV or whoever's all in with it, I don't think they're obligated to pay any more money for more games. So they're trying to figure out a way to make that happen because CBS is like, well, if we do this, don't be bringing Central Connecticut State against Alabama State in here because, see, nobody's watching that anyway. No offense to either one of those schools, but that's true. I mean, let's bring North Carolina State on the verge of getting in against.
Bye, y'all. I'm gone.
Huh?
I'm gone on that.
He don't ever look for a damn way to get out. He just gets out.
Well, he's like somebody came at him with a hook, like Night into Apollo.
Hey, wait a minute! I think
Sandman
I saw a
swept him out.
mockingbird fly by. I'll see you, but no, I'm with you. I think that I don't know how it's fixable, man, on any level. That's the sad thing. I don't know what fixable even means. I don't know what it means.
If I weren't doing a podcast and sports split stuff, I'd be like, y'all just come get me when y'all figured out how y'all want to do this. I'm tired of every day, it's something different. Let's just
gives us a lot to talk about. I can tell you that. We don't ever run out of shit to talk about. That's 100%.
I know, running my blood pressure up though.
Yep. All right.
All right.
Well, I guess we're gonna shut it down. So
I'll see y'all later.
You get the hook. All right, buddy. I'll see you, man. Appreciate everybody. Thank y'all for watching.